Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com with this week's episode of the Market Monday. First, I'm going to apologize in advance. This isn't going to have any snazzy editing, running a little bit late again, as usual, for a Monday. We'll try to get back in the swing of things as fall arrives. I have a lot more time in September and October to dedicate towards the channel than I do in the summer. So anyway, let's just start off with a bit of a rant, bit of a negative rant. And a lot of you checked out my Puka Trade videos in the past. This is going to be a little bit of one of those type of rants. So I have done some videos in the past about suggestions that I think Puka Trade should use, and none of them have been heeded, of course. Puka Trade just has kept doing the same thing since its inception. Hasn't really done much changes. They have done an Indiegogo campaign where they raised just an insane amount of money, and they're super excited to unveil their new Puka Trade website, which they gave me early access to, and I'm just not impressed with it. It was all aesthetics, no function, zero function, and actually it was a lot more clunky, a lot slower, and just a lot more disheveled than the one thing that I could say about Puka Trade. What it has going for it is it actually has a clean look and it's quite user friendly. It's easy to use. It's easy. Everything is easy to search for. Everything's easy to find. Everything's easy to go through the transactions. The newer site, not so much. I think that if that's what they spent all their Indiegogo and just a makeover, it really reminds me of what was that card? What was it called? The Mitsubishi Eclipse, which is the exact same car as like the $8,000 card with just like a $15,000 body kit. That's what the Puka Trade actually reminds me of. It's something like one of those hollow cars. So anyway, where I'm going to go about this rant is, once again, the inability to set your prices has screwed me over. So I've had about $40, $50 on Puka Trade forever now. I haven't traded like I used to just because summer's busy. I used to send off like 3, 4, 5 packages a day on Puka Trade, and I'd easily bring in like $100 to $200 worth of points per week. And what I use Puka Trade for at my local game store is Puka Trade is actually really good to get commander staples. Well, it used to be. It's terrible to get modern staples. Good luck. You're never going to get them. And it's really, really hard to find trades on casual cards, like to send off casual cards. But to get casual cards, we do have a pretty healthy commander group that always wants cards here at my local game store. So I've been using it to actually get the odds and ends for the commander players, which has been pretty good. I mean, it's been a good service for that aspect of the Puka Trade. So anyway, I have had about 40, 50 bucks worth of points forever now, with I think we have over $1,000 in wants on our want page. No one is sending anything. No one is sending anything. A very diverse line of cards, and 2 of those cards I had on there were Greater Gargadon and Bridge from Below. And if you see, overnight, these went up over 15 bucks a piece. So I wake up this morning, log into my Puka Trade account, and lo and behold, I have no points. I'm like, oh, cool, we got some trades. Finally got some trades. I've had, weeks and weeks and weeks with no action. And it's Bridge from Below and Greater Gar. It's someone sending off Bridge from Below. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is a price that's overhyped right now. It just had a buyout, and what happens with buyouts is they then settle back down. So this is the huge problem with Puka Trade. And Puka Trade's little response to this is, well, you should take better you need to beware of price fluctuation. You as the buyer need to be more proactive and know when the price spike is going to happen. This happened in the middle of the night. How is anyone going to be ready for? I knew that like Greater Gargan and Bridge from Below decks have started to see a little more play, but not a lot. Like Modern has seen some dredge decks, but they haven't really gone that route of the Greater Gargan and Bridge from Below. And this was just a classic buyout. Someone's like, okay, the supply of this is quite low. There's enough players that continue to want it. It's a fun deck to play. If you have never seen a Bridge from Below Greater Gargadon deck, is you get a Bridge from Below in the graveyard, and then you just keep sacking everything to the Greater Gargadon, and you keep getting a bunch of Bridge from Below. So whenever non-creature token is put in your graveyard from the battlefield, if Bridge from Below is in your graveyard, put a 2/2 black zombie, so you can just sack a bunch of your creatures that you have out, and then have that to the Greater Gargadon, and then just keep getting a 2/2 black zombie creature. So this is like the 1/1 that comes into the battlefield from your graveyard. and then you sack it to the Guard on. Pretty soon you have a 9/7 and a bunch of 2/2s, and you just win the game. So anyway, that's the whole gist of the deck. And so, and also another thing that British Below does is it gives you another activation with Greater Gargadon, so it's quite easy at the 9/7 out. So anyway, this is a tier 3 deck. It's a tier 2. It isn't a Dredge umbrella, which Dredge is becoming very, very big, but a buyout was a little unexpected. Again, it wasn't there. There was no top finishes with the deck, nothing. So how in the world are you supposed to stay proactive or savvy with a price spike with Puka Trade? It just makes me not want to use a service. It's an inherent problem with not being able to set your own price. Every other service in the entire world, you get to set your own price. How Puka Trade works is the opposite of everything else. If I go to eBay, if I go to TC Player, if I go to Star City Games, I look for a card, I see a price, I buy the card, the shipper sends it to me. Puka Trade is, I want a card, I put it up on my want list, a seller comes, searches through a bunch of buyers, and sells a particular card. And so it opens up this window for exploitation for these huge price spikes. Now, I have emailed the seller and asked them to please cancel the trade, but I can't guarantee that can happen. Then what happens? Like, it's just the service is crappy. Now, if I decide that I just don't want to receive it, then I can just never confirm the trade. And how is he going to prove that it ever sent to me? Or I can be a Nazi on the near mint condition. Basically, nothing is near mint these days. It's very hard to send off a card that is near mint. Any sort of imperfections actually doesn't have the near mint specification. I've had to deal with. In fact, I have a very extensive block list on Puka Trade of those near mint Nazis, is what I like to call them, especially when they want cards from like Odyssey or, Clearback and Legacy, a common, a 22-cent common, and they get pissed off that it has, slight fading or slight play on it. And, it's just, I think this might be the nail in the coffin. I've had a negative experience with Puka Trade for, I think, the past 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. I don't know. It's been a while now. They haven't addressed anything. And I just slowly think it's just going to crash. And I think that maybe I'll just accept this Bridge from Below trade and just get out of the service completely. I haven't used it in a long time to really trade off anything but, I made a killing off of, commons and uncommons from modern staple common and uncommons I had tons of. So we're talking about Shrieking Afflictions and Codex Shredders, things like that go into modern decks, and they actually have 50-cent, 60-cent values. So anyway, that's my little bit of a rant with the whole Puka Trade. I'm going to now completely remove any sort of seal of approval. I think that if you, it's just come to the point for me personally, and I'm hoping for other people to send a message to Puka Trade and stop using their service completely. So I'm officially saying I'm getting out of the service. So anyway, there's that. Let's go on now to some actual finance. So first of all, another rant. Let's go to one more rant, which is the Conspiracy spoilers. Conspiracy is a fun set. I absolutely love it. It's going to make cubes more interesting. There's some really, really cool cards. You can go to mythicspoiler.com and check out the spoiled cards. But lo and behold, there's one spoiled card that just doesn't fit. And I'm going to try to talk about it. I guess this isn't really a finance thing, but it just seems completely lazy. I don't understand how this card made it into... maybe it's because Kozilek will make some sort of return in Conspiracy, but Inquisition of Kozilek is gonna be in Conspiracy 2. Okay. Well, first of all, let me say why this doesn't fit in storyline. Where's Kozilek? Where isn't this plane? This plane is way far away from Zendikar, right? Yeah. I'm pretty sure Conspiracy has its own plane, own storyline, own everything, and Eldrazi have never been there. So I understand that Inquisitor Kozilek has had a huge price tag. They did bump this up to a rare, which is crazy. So it's not going to affect the price because the price of Inquisition of Kozilek I think is around 12-ish, and so I think that it might go down slightly. But this is a heavily played card in Modern. So yes, we did need a reprint. But I think that's where Eternal Masters or Modern Masters 3 would be a better slot because it fits in the theme because it is a heavily played card in those formats, Eternal formats. And the other reason I hate this in Conspiracy is this card is so weak. in Conspiracy. This card is beyond weak in Conspiracy. This card is garbage in a Conspiracy draft. If anyone's ever done a multiplayer draft or played in Commander, you need cards that are heavy impact cards. So a card that kills something with converted mana cost 3 or less is so minute of an ability in a Conspiracy type, in a multiplayer format. When's the last time you've seen Inquisition of Kozilek in a Commander, not a 1 versus 1 Commander, in like a Commander setting? It's just not worth it to use a card that could miss, that is very likely to miss in a Commander setting with people running, like 9-drops are playable in Commander. That's how slow the formats tend to be and how casual it tends to be. A real spike card that is good at ripping out early threats or early game plans of one particular opponent is not something that translates into a card that is played in a multiplayer format. So I just think this is just extremely awkward of a card in Conspiracy. But just be noted, for finance reasons, this is getting a reprint. I don't think it's going to affect the price much, because I think that printing the Inquisition of Kozilek in the Modern Event deck did more to settle the price than I think that it would do as a rare in a set that won't be open that much, unless we start seeing a lot of huge chase cards, which so far I haven't seen that many huge chase cards in the Conspiracy 2 set. So Conspiracy Take the Crown. So there's that out of the way. Lastly, I want to talk about the kind of trends that we see in finance, in the Magic finance world, and I think we're in pattern B. So let me talk about patterns first of all. If we come over here, if we start to see like the cards that are going up and down in Modern tends to have a lot of movement when there is a Pro Tour that just came and went with different decks that were played, or just a Modern PPTQ season, or for whatever reason, just after a rotation season, like after a stale standard. A stale standard season leads to Modern prices often going up, because everyone just transitions over from Standard over to Modern, and then they give up on Standard, or everyone has their pieces for Standard, and they start investing in that. So Modern right now is incredibly stale. So beyond like the Bridge from Below and Greater Garganon bump and Brushland seeing play, this card continues to go up just because of Eldrazi. Bant Eldrazi is a very popular deck in Modern. The majority of Modern staples have been on a decline lately. Like a ton of these cards, even Fetchlands, even Shocklands to the point, have been pretty stale or on a decline. Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant, those are still suffering from Modern Masters too. So the pattern A is when Modern staples go crazy, and we have a year where Modern outperforms Casual. Pattern B is when Casual outperforms Modern, and I think that we're in a pattern B schedule. So Modern also shines when we have a huge influx of new players, or actually we did like a year or two ago, and they make the natural move from Standard to Modern. Casual or B is the exact opposite when we have a decline of constructed players or Standard or Modern players, tournament players, and an increase of just the casual players. So what happens with pattern B is when people, and this happens very often, they get into I see at my local game store all the time too, they get into competitive and then decide competitive's not for them, and then just go over to more of a casual Magic collection or casual Magic play. So they go from playing Magic 4, 5, 6 times a month to down to 1, 2, 3 times a month, or weekly to monthly type thing. And so you see a lot of these casual favorites start to go up in value, and I think that we are in that pattern B. We saw that last time in like 2014, 2013, I believe, that when casual cards like Mikaeus, the Unhallowed, actually outperformed everything in Dark Ascension, and there actually was some cards I would consider to be Modern playable that went down that year, and then Mikaeus just went crazy. So let's just check the rotated. Let's just check Theros and Khans, for example, because those are two sets that people have invested in. I have tried to steer people away from investing in Khans of Tarkir. I've heard from other investors through the circuit that your best place to park your money is in Khans of Tarkir and Fetchlands. I've disagreed and disagreed and disagreed and disagreed with that, and now we're going to check it out. So rotation time. We have the Kanzatar here. It peaks out right here. That's actually rotation. 240, actually rotation's what, right here? Yeah. So it peaks out at $240, what's a set's worth. And that's after the fetch lands go crazy because of the lands out of Battle for Zendikar. The dual lands out of Battle for Zendikar work really good with the fetch lands, so those fetch lands go crazy, and then they begin their decline until rotation. So rotations is 183. We are now down to 153. It's lost $30 in value, and the vast majority of that value has been right here in the fetch lands. I told people, do not park your money in fetch lands. Park it in a year and a half in fetch lands. So let's look at the most popular one, the one that is played the most in the Eternal formats, in Legacy and in Modern combined. Polluted Delta has the most play, and you can see it is now the only fetch land above $17. I remember when I told everyone right here-ish, we did a video and I said, okay, now all the fetch lands are down under 20 bucks. Now they're under 17. This trend is going to continue to, I think, let's see. So they were worth, during their peak of their standard, when they're slightly seeing plain standard, 13. I think this is going to be the bottom for Polluted Delta. I sold these at a Grand Prix for 18 bucks a piece. Polluted Deltas. That's how much that and it was around like here-ish when I sold them. I got out of them right here-ish. I think it was actually right here when I got out of them at $18 a piece. And just because I just thought they were overinflated, as they were heavily printed in Kanzatar here, and they're also in Fate Reforged. People forget that. I think you get an average between 2 and 3. Is it 1 in 12 packs, or is it 1 in 16 packs in Fate Reforged that you actually get a fetch land? I can't quite remember, because you got to remember in Fate Reforged that they actually took this slot of a land. You didn't get lands. You got the enter the battlefield tapped, gain a life lands instead of basic lands, and Polluted Deltas and other fetch lands could actually replace that slot. So there is just a ton of these cards out there in the world. And also, the difference between casual cards and these super competitive cards is everyone that thinks they're an investor, or everyone that thinks they're a collector, already got their playsets of these. So people have these cards. I know at my local game store, all the modern players have a playset of all of these. They invested in, they wanted them, they didn't want to have to pay, because we saw with the Zendikar, the original Zendikar fetch lands, how they went insane, up to 50, 60, 70, all the way up to $100 for the Scalding Tarns at one point. And they really were like the entry-level cards you had to buy or had to get screwed on to actually play Modern, because every deck did use fetch lands. And now you can pick and choose which fetch lands to use. If you have to use like a Wooded Foothills instead of an Arid Mesa, a lot of times that is fine. In Burn, it works. Arid Mesa, of course, is a little bit better because it can go get that basic plains, but for the most part, a Wooded Foothills does the exact same thing as an Arid Mesa by getting the Sacred Foundry is what you want to be hitting anyway. So that's what we're kind of spoiled with, the amount of fetch lands we have, and I think that is going to always affect the prices of these fetch lands. So there's point number A, and it was just because the reason why these were able to spike up to around this $26 mark, doubling in value down to 13, is they went from a 2 of to a 4 of. And so that's a double price increase in decks in Standard. And then when they rotated out of Standard, they're just now Moderns. They went from a 4 of to a 0 of in Standard. Of course, that has to happen. And that's, I called for caution. You can go back in my videos and check it, not to invest in fetch lands. I said if you want something that, you know, won't lose half its value or 75% of its value like other cards, other Standard cards when they rotate out of Standard, yes, you can invest in Polluted Delta for the long-term investment. But I said there was better places to park your money. One of them was Clever Impersonator. Clever Impersonator is a casual card that saw very little play, if any, in Standard, but sees a ton of play in Commander. It's basically a staple in every blue Commander deck because of how powerful the card is in Commander, copying anyone's Commander, copying anyone's broken artifact or enchantment. This card is really powerful at just 4 mana. Copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. And so after rotation, it was a $2.40 card. It is now up to a $3.31 card. And this little casual increase is continue to happen. It will keep going like this. That's how the trajectory of Micaeus was. So I think people need to rethink investment and not ignore casual cards, not ignore that there's a huge player base of people that only play casual, only play commander, and they also have deep pockets just like the modern players, just like the competitive, even legacy players. There are people that spend a lot of money on their commander decks. Commander players seem to be inherently lazy to me too. Like they always like I know one particular person that he has like 15 commander decks, and instead of switching cards out, he puts a new version of each, so his decks are always completely made. So every one of his blue decks has a Clever Impersonator in it. He doesn't just swap out Clever Impersonators from those decks. So there's actually a pressure from those commander players for multiple copies. I'm not like that. I just put in little notes in my commander decks. I'll have to show you sometimes saying, "Oh, Clever Impersonator is in Marquesa," and so when I pull up a Momer Vig deck, I'll be like, "Oh, where's my Clever Impersonator? Oh, it's in Marquesa." I use the exact same sleeves too, so it's easy to just swap things out. So anyway, that's you can go back. You can go back to like Theros. You can go back to Born of the Gods. You can go back even to Return to Ravnica, and it still is these casual cards that have been outperforming these cards. I think that Shocklands are just barely starting to see movement. We saw Howled Fountain see its bottom not too long ago, meaning it is the lowest it was ever in its history. And it's been, what, 2 years since rotation, over 2 years since rotation of Return to Ravnica, and they're just barely starting to see a little bit of a price increase. And most of those price increases are actually coming from Gate Crash, because it wasn't open as much as Return to Ravnica. The Return to Ravnica Shocklands are still very, very low, and they're heavily played in Modern. So Casual is having more of a pressure than Modern is. So that's something to note. So anyway, let's just look at Theros, and I want to compare two cards. One of them being Thoughtseize. I know so many people that threw their money into Thougtseize. This was another card I got out of around the $18 mark. Two vendors. I sold these two vendors for like $18-ish. And I did that again right here is when, right here is when I sold them at the 23. So I sold them at 18. It was one of the Grand Prix that I sold them at. I think it was it just Modern Masters 2 that I sold them at? When was that? I can't even remember. No, it was some sort of Grand Prix that I sold them at, or some event around this area that I sold all my Thoughtseizes for that, and people were picking them up like crazy because they were going to be a Modern staple forever, blah, 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 and it has just continued to go down. So also we have to worry about Modern being supported in the future. Star City Games has focused a little more on Standard and had Modern as more of a side thing lately, and with the announcement that we'll never see a Pro Tour again being Modern, the only time we're going to see Pro Tours is at Worlds, as just, again, it's going to be a half-seas. Like, we'll see people play Standard and Modern, or where is it where the teams play? Yeah, that's Worlds. So, yeah, we'll see some Modern on camera at these bigger events, but not at Pro Tours, and Pro Tours are by far the biggest influence on the market. So that is very, 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 very scary about these Modern staples if they're never going to really see a lot of spotlight. So we've seen Thoughtseize just continue to go down. For what, almost a full year now, since July to July, it's been going down. So let's just compare it to the casual favorite of the set, which does see a little bit of Modern play. And we'll go back to July as well of 2015, where it was $6 and now is up to $9. Perforos is another card that is insanely played in Commander. I think it's powerful enough to actually even be at least a discussion that it could be banned in Commander. That's how powerful it is, just being able to do 2 damage each opponent and having so many infinite combos, or just combos that just kill all the players at once, is very, very real in Commander. A lot of Krenko decks love this card. Perforos actually makes a good commander himself, and there's just a Prosh. Prosh is another commander that absolutely every Prosh deck wants a Perforos. Every Krenko deck wants one. And as a commander, so it's going to have a lot of pressure from that. Casual players love this. It's a god. All the gods have been going up. Even the terrible ones have been going up. It's funny, the only god that hasn't been going up is the one that I consider the most competitive, which is the white-blue one. So anyway, this has outperformed Thoughtseize. Completely outperformed Thoughtseize if you compare the time range. So I think that rethinking as investors and not ignoring the casual crowd is the right route to go. Look at like those Shrine of Nyx too. I would not be surprised if this is going to be the rare that is going to be the most expensive card, surpassing Thoughtseize. It is starting to go back down again, but at its low, after its rotation low, it was about $5, and it did go up to $7, and now it's down to $6.50. But this is another card that sees a ton of play in a multitude of casual decks, and is actually powerful enough for Modern. I've seen it in Modern. I've used it in Tooth and Nail before, and I've seen some other people play it as a one of in other decks. So that is just my little spiel here with the casual versus competitive cards and why you should not ignore competitive cards. If anyone else has some other examples of these, just go back and look at like even we've looked at two of the first sets out of a block, which actually usually have the worst time of actually going up just because they're open so much. Like Theros was drafted with Born of the Gods and then drafting him with Journey of Nyx, and then Khans was drafted as a 3 of, or with Khans, and then as a 2 of actually with Fate Reforged. So the supply of those are a lot higher than sets like Fate Reforged or set like Born of the Gods. If we can even go back into those sets and look at those sets and look at the casual versus competitive cards, I think that you're going to see this trend continue. So do not get sucked into the invest only in the staple, modern staple, legacy staple trends. Magic has had a little bit of a makeover in the past. We saw that during the kind of the modern, when Modern was the whole inception of Modern. We saw a lot of these cards spike in value just because so many people went over to the format. But one thing that is true for the history of Magic is kitchen table players are going to exist, and they're always going to be probably the biggest pressure for the. I think that there's probably more kitchen player Magic players than there are competitive Magic players. It's true at my local game store. Yes, the competitive players are the people that usually spend more money, but over time, casual players in their masses, probably as a whole, spend more money than the one or two competitive players that you might have in your scene, or the the millions versus the thousands. So anyway, that's my little spiel. Let me know in the comment section below about your particular investment strategies, casual versus competitive, and if there's any like glaring statistics that I missed. There could be some better even examples of cards. Let me know in the comment section below. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.